So it's been clear for a long time that the number of emperors in the One Piece doesn't matter, and it was proven in the last chapter that just came out after the long break, chapter 1054, introducing the Flame Emperor. Now, the thing about Emperors of the Sea is that normally we have 4, right? And that was the way things were, and maybe we thought we might get something different, making Kid and Law emperors as well, but no, we still have 4, but not the 4 that we expected. And then now in this chapter we get the Flame Emperor, and although it says Emperor and people call him a Flame Emperor, he's not really counted as one of the Yonko, the 4 Emperor of the Sea, and I think a big issue with that is that it's just about who the characters are in the world. The 4 Emperors of the Sea is related to being Emperors of the Sea. It's related to piracy. Whereas the Flame Emperor and everything that, is with Sabo is more towards the revolutionaries. They're not about conquering the sea. And so there's a slight difference, but I think that where Sabo is right now is definitely up there in that kind of Yonko status, if you don't want to say he's that strong, I don't mind. I also don't know right now. I'm still trying to figure everything out, but it's very clear that what Sabo is doing right now is really up there, right? And it's the likes of characters who, we know in the world today are not even achieving, even being compared to Dragon, which we'll get into later. But back to him being a Flame Emperor, I think that name in itself is interesting because Sabo has been in the One Piece world for a really long time, having a bounty of over 500 million, being well known in that case. People knew Ace, who had, I think, 550, but, Sabo now being known as the Flame Emperor is very interesting, given that he only started using his flame abilities in front of the world at the Reverie. So, I maybe it's to do with, some techniques. Maybe he really did something at the Reverie specifically to make himself the Flame Emperor. And maybe, maybe right now he's the real dragon, right? Speaking of the fact that he destroyed the dragon symbol, probably with a dragon-based technique. Now that he has the fire, he's got the Ryusoken and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know, I think it's interesting just itself, being named the Flame Emperor. And more so than just that, he's not only an emperor in name, but emperor in, the casual way we think about it. A lot of times we like to think that emperors of the sea, the Yonko, also need territories. And in this chapter, they also showed that there are at least 8 kingdoms who backed them, right? They, at the same time, almost as if it was planned, definitely was planned, that, they also took over their kingdoms, right? So we have whole kingdoms or / ally nations who are willing to follow Sabo's lead and go with whatever he's doing, stay under the revolutionaries' banner. And that is essentially what we would think of as a Yonko crew, with the core crew here being the revolutionaries themselves and all the allied kingdoms being the kingdoms they are liberating, the ones who are following their example and taking over from, oppressive rulership. But a big thing about this is that the revolutionaries don't really need to hide anymore. Revolutionaries have reached a point in which they have kingdoms which are big enough to go to the Reverie, now following their lead. I don't know how many nations go to the Reverie, but 8 of them should be a significant portion, not to be scoffed at, right? So having those 8 means you don't really need to hide as revolutionaries anymore. You can just do whatever you want. You have allies throughout the world now, literally allies throughout the world. But again, to Sabo's strength, I think it's very confusing, right? Because we know that, him and, is it Lindbergh, Karasu, and Morley, along with Bonnie, fought against Fujitora and Aramaki. Or I should say Isho and Aramaki, and then Fujitora and Ryukyogu. I'm just going to say Aramaki and Fujitora, I don't care. Anyway, they fought against those 2, and the battle doesn't seem like it was super conclusive, because at the end of the day, they were not trying to fight to win, they were just trying to free Kuma and get out of there. Which they did, by the way, but it's even more impressive given what we know about Aramaki's character. Because, at first it seemed like, okay, you can maybe say Fujitora let them leave or something like that. But Green Bull wouldn't, or Aramaki wouldn't. He would definitely do that, a Kainu pursuit, and something else would have to stop him from doing so. Also, interestingly enough, now that we've seen Aramaki, he doesn't ever make any comments about, what's going on in the world. He does talk about what's going on in the world, but he never makes a comment about Fujitora doing anything to let them go. So, highly likely that Fujitora didn't really hold back that much. Maybe he doesn't believe in the revolutionary way, and that's why he's with the Marines, not the revolutionaries. So, most likely, they were not holding back their punches, and, at the end of the day, Sabo still managed to get everyone out of there. Now, of course, we don't know much about the other revolutionary commanders and their abilities. We just know that they are very capable, but compared to admirals, it's anyone's guess. But I just want to assume that Sabo carried that fight, and it's so interesting when you compare it to Luffy, because just like Luffy, Sabo's kind of done a mix of Whole Cake Island and Wano Arc. In one case, in the Whole Cake Island case, he's gone to a fortress of, one of the powers of the sea, taken out a crewmate, maybe something else. Luffy took back Sanji, Sabo took back Kuma, and maybe, Luffy got poneglyph rubbing, maybe Sabo got something else, maybe Bonnie helped Sabo get something else. Maybe Bonnie replacing Brook in the situation. I don't know. But maybe they got something else. But it's kind of the same thing. And had a kind of moral victory over them. Even including the death of a potential ally of theirs, Cobra and Pedro. So there's very many similarities there. But then on the other hand, you have the Wano comparison, in which instead of going up against 2 emperors of the sea, Sabo and his friends went up against 2 admirals of the navy. And they still, in a sense, won. We don't know exactly how that battle ended, how everyone looked at the end of it, but they kind of did win. So it's a kind of a mix of the two. And that's why it's very interesting to put him on that emperor level. Or if not, at least at a significant point, kind of, where Luffy was at the end of Whole Cake Island, where it's like the new emperor emerging. But further along that line. So somewhere between where Luffy is now and where Luffy was at the end of Whole Cake Island in terms of, is he actually an emperor? In terms of strength, that's another discussion for another day. Now, moving on to Dragon and Sabo, because they did mention specifically that Sabo has kind of surpassed Dragon in a way within the Revolutionary Army. And I think that's interesting, not because we want to talk about Sabo versus Dragon and all that kind of stuff, but because of what it means for Sabo and these guys. Because I think, some of what may be going around is that, it may be internal strife with that, but I don't know. I think the revolutionaries are fundamentally different from pirates. With the pirate, the captain is always the main guy. You can't have someone outshining the captain, because it's all about the captain's dream on a pirate ship, right? But with the revolutionaries, their goal is bigger than themselves. Right, we get that feeling from stuff that's, mysterious, but stuff like that, what Kuma did and all these other characters, from what their mission is, it's not about who's in charge, it's about getting the mission completed, right? So I think that Dragon personally wouldn't actually mind that Sabo's actually up there in notoriety. What Dragon cares about is more of the mission. And so, Sabo has kind of become the new Dragon in a sense, also with his abilities, but he's also become the new face of it, the fighting force. So the kind of young generation, that young spirit that the revolutionaries needed to, get going again. He's become that, while Dragon is still kind of an organizing figure. And I imagine that if the One Piece story was going to go on for another 10 years before everything in the world changed, that I would imagine that Dragon would slowly kind of hand over the revolutionaries to Sabo, right? Kind of training him up as a protege. In the same way, you have Whitebeard and Ace. Maybe that's what would have happened over time, as Whitebeard got older. Maybe he would have wanted Ace to succeed, and we know that Ace had good and significant potential. So it could be a situation like that, in which you have the strongest man handing over to the son of to Ace, the son of the Pirate King. Or now you have the most wanted man handing over to Sabo, one of the other brothers. So something in that case. Or in the case of the Marines, you have maybe like what it was 2 years ago at Marineford, where you had Sengoku, the fleet admiral, but he was not really the face of that fight in terms of fighting ability. It was Akainu. Akainu was the face of that fight, and he was the one doing a lot of work, fighting so many characters, Whitebeard, a lot of the commanders on the Whitebeard pirates, and all these other characters. So in the same way, just like Sengoku was there, he was still a capable fighter, but he didn't really do much. He just sat at the back and really organized everyone. In the same way, you could have Dragon taking that role, while Sabo's taking the role of Akainu. Which then leads into an interesting discussion about Sabo and Akainu. Because now, again, interestingly enough, he is the Flame Emperor. And one big thing about, Ace dying at the hands of Akainu is the fact that Akainu was, his magma burned hotter than fire. But can the magma that burns hotter than Ace's fire really take down the Flame Emperor, right? When you add Emperor to the end of Flame, it takes it to a whole new status. So once again, now I know, it's unclear, maybe it'll be Luffy who fights him. I know there's stuff that got up there. I know that people who believe that it will be Luffy to take down Akainu. I know, I don't mind, however it plays out, I'm going to enjoy it in the end, but it also could be Sabo, right? Because of everything with Ace once again. So, that being said, Akainu versus Sabo seems to me in this chapter to be really set up really well, because even after all the Sabo stuff in the chapter, we finally get Akainu at the end, talking about everything that's going on in the world. The main thing in this chapter going on in the world being the Sabo stuff. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think about Sabo now being a Flame Emperor or an Emperor in some sense. What do you think about how strong he is, what it means, the connection with the dragon, how do you view that, and everything else? What abilities do you think he has, and how do you think it ended up at the end of the Reverie? What do you think actually happened, especially with Cobra and Vivi missing? Be interesting to know. As always, guys, like this video if you liked the video, and subscribe for more content like this. If you know someone who needs to hear the truth about Sabo, about Dragon, about Akainu, about everyone else, about the emperors of the sea and the emperors in general, the big powers of the world, share this video with them. Okay, guys, thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.